Hi y'all, welcome to the 4th episode of my Hyper Travel with Hardy series, in which I'm showing pictures of my trips for the last 20 years. We've already covered southernmost South America, the Caribbean, and Southeast Europe. Now we'll go to the Caucasus region, including Turkey, and the Horn of Africa, including Ethiopia. This trip goes against the idea that a coherent trip would necessarily consist of one continuous region, and that the Caucasus and the Horn of Africa aren't really connected. But in the modern jet age of hub-and-spoke travel and inexpensive airlines, that's very possible. In fact, the original trip also consisted of the Scandinavian region, but I've saved that for later in order to maintain some regional continuity. So we'll only cover 2 nearby regions for this trip. Are you ready? I've had the Ethiopian visa for a while, thinking I might use it on my previous Southeast Europe trip, but that never happened, so now it's time. First stop will be Ethiopia, with a brief stopover in London from LA. I'm staying with some NGO friends in Addis Ababa, so a bit out of the way and on the outskirts of town. So we'll do some touristy stuff there, the best of which are the culture shows for drinks and dinner, which seem to have made an impact on the local tourist scene. Oliver Dukutsi is also giving a concert on the weekend, so I'll stay for that before heading for the border. Because Somalia is the big question mark for this trip, so I'll deal with that first. Specifically, a visa to the upstart Somaliland, with capital at Hargeisa, accessible by land from Ethiopia, and imminently more peaceful than Mogadishu. So I'll get my visa for that in the meantime. It's no problem. And the concert with Tuku is good, sprawling over the pavement and inviting all to dance. The bus to the border should be so welcoming. I'll make stops at Dirdawa and Harar, but the terminal at the Italian Mercato at 0500 is shambolic. Some of these people look like they've been sleeping on the bus all night, but that's okay as long as I don't get robbed. I'll get pickpocketed at least once in Ethiopia, so my fears are well founded. Mercato is notorious. Things get better out on the open road though, especially when the large trucks take the turn to Djibouti while we continue on to Dirdawa. At some point, the bus stops and people buy chat, but not me, not yet. Dirdawa is not so different from Addis. Christian and full of parties. But Harar, only an hour away, is totally different. Muslim and prohibited. Semi-narcotic chat only to stay awake for prayers. The big deal for tourists there are the hyena feedings. But the big deal for me is the Trail of Rimbaud, the French poet who put Ethiopia on his map when he retired from poetry at the age of 20-something. They remember him there also. From there it's all downhill to Jitiga and the border to Somaliland. The border looks like it's been scratched into the sand willy-nilly. The city of Hargeisa is not bad though, better than Mogadishu, I'm sure. It's just a taxi ride from the border with a Muslim in my lap, but there's nothing really special there, so I book a flight to Djibouti and cross my fingers. It's a real Russian plane with real Russian pilots and crew, flying low over the sand with nothing much better to do. And Djibouti is no better, just more French and more expensive and quite rude to boot, especially if you make the grave mistake of snapping a picture, no matter of what. It's all prohibited. So I don't stay long, but bite the bullet and catch a flight back to Addis, rather than sweat 2 or more days on the slow bus uphill. That will give me time to explore the rest of Ethiopia, which is much preferable to these lowland desert dregs. Classic Ethiopia is in the hills, where it's cool and the atmosphere is biblical, shepherds with rods and staffs and robes to conceal themselves. The only problem is the bus system, and I found the solution to that. Salam bus. Back in Addis Ababa, I get my own place, a real live modern city with an uptown and a downtown and miles of walkable streets between the two. I won't waste a lot of time right now though, since it's a well-worn travel truth that you do the hard miles first, since there will always be chill time on the rebound. So I catch the bus for Gondar, which will allow me a stopover at Mahir Dar on Lake Tana on the return leg. Glorious Lalibela doesn't look far as the crow flies on that map either, but I've learned not to trust random crows. This upgrade Salam bus doesn't leave from the Mercato either, so that's good, even though it'll get me into Gondar after dark. Very dark, since there's rolling brownouts in Ethiopia too, almost like a communist knee-jerk reaction, along with illegal blogs and feral dogs. The espresso makes up for the minor inconveniences, I guess. The check-in guy assures me that the lights will come on at 10 p.m. just like Harar, but I'm not impressed, since I don't sleep with the lights on, though I guess some do. It's probably a security thing. The royal enclosure that defines Gondar is nice, though, and the people are fine when they don't pick my pockets. So I'm digging the biblical scenes with Joseph in his Technicolor Dreamcoat, and I even find a rare picture of Muhammad on a village church's wall. Did you know that Ethiopia is the oldest form of Christianity in the world? They and Armenia, or is it Georgia? Their alphabets are all similar. Muhammad came later, but he's remembered. I backtracked to Bahir Dar, and the move feels good. Lalibela will have to wait. The big deal there are monasteries dotting the lake, but not so scenic. So I go down the road to see the falls of the Blue Nile, and that's good. The drive back to Addis is much better than the drive out, simply because the air is so much cleaner now. So it's almost like a different trip. And Addis almost feels like home now, so I go to my favorite coffee shop and chill. When someone tries to pickpocket me from behind, I shake their hand in perfect time, their face long lost in the crowd. This part of the trip is over. I'll go back to Istanbul now. Istanbul is a metropolis in comparison to Addis Ababa. It has dozens of hostels and guest houses vying for business in Sultanahmet, where the rival mosques of Hagia Sophia and the Blue Mosque vie for tourist dollars, while the beds and breakfasts vie for rooftop views. Oh sure, Istanbul has a reputation for sleaze, back in the days of French connections and lethal injections, and you could probably find a sad old street walker if you really need that. But mostly it's buffet breakfast and all-you-can-eat shashlik served up straight from the street, ready to put the shish back in your kebab. You could probably find something Lebanese and blonde too, without too much trouble, but the movie Midnight Express is still fresh in my memory, so I think better of all such propositions. There's some hard travel to do also, so time waits for no one, and I set out on a big-ass bus, complete with hostess and snacks. There's a ferry across the Black Sea at some point, maybe it's Samsun, but I forgo it. And Trabzon is the historic Greek limit of influence. So I stopped there thinking to meander, but ended up catching a connection to Georgia within 5 minutes. Georgia is totally different too. Batumi is a seacoast city, for one thing, and there's good coffee for another. Their Turkish coffee is much better than Turkey's, where Nescafe rules supreme. Market stalls line the streets up and down this town. Then I go to Tbilisi, which is different yet again, a big city in a small country. Wi-Fi is scarce everywhere, so I have no reservation and bite the bullet on a pricey place rather than find an internet cafe and start over. The old ways of Lonely Planet and blind logic die hard, so I don't stay long, instead looking for the bus stop by the muddy spot and hope for the best on the border to Armenia. They all look like Seinfeld's Uncle Leo, but that's okay, I can pay, just get me to Yerevan by sundown. So I finally get the good bus and free coffee at the Countryside Inn, and all is right with the world. There's a hostel waiting for me at Yerevan and some righteous travelers too. So that is fine, and I try to study Russian. Because this is still the USSR by some accounts, and that keeps the cynics at bay and the critics at sea, and lessens the distinctions between you and me, so that all three nations here, Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan, can stay away from each other's throats long enough to draw maps, where otherwise none exist. So Nagorno-Karabakh bides his time, and Nakhchivan hangs 9 and waits for another day to be delivered. The duduk flute makers live on the outskirts of town, so we do that one day and get drunk. Me and one of the few guided tours in some 35 years of travel. I can count them on one hand. And the city is cool too, with parks full of pop-up restos and bars. So what if the drivers are maniacs and the food is nothing special? That's why Thai Town and Little Armenia share space in Los Angeles, so I can have good bread with my Thai food. From here, there's no way to cross into Azerbaijan either, unless I want to wait for Nagorno-Karabakh to surrender, or return to Georgia and backtrack from there. There's no direct route to Turkey either. It all sounds too complicated for a trip to the birthplace of the oil industry. So I return to Georgia and take it from there, figuring to go to Cappadocia first and then Cyprus for extra credit. That means Goreme and the fairy chimneys and hoodoo voodoo haunts, which make it famous, with barkers and colored balloons floating overhead like semaphores over Santa Fe from Albuquerque far below. The whole place looking like bedrock for Flintstones, Wilma and Fred, then Betty and Barney rubble with Dino the dinosaur for good measure. It's all good fun until I wake up with my laptop lying on the floor, incapable of holding a charge now without some expert care and maintenance. It's these damn fluffy beds rejecting everything semi-erect and hardened. That means a return to Istanbul, but not so fast. So I hightail it to Cyprus with a ferry from Tasuku on chasing but not hasten, not too much anyway. The green line that separates Nicosia from Lefkosa divides more than North Cyprus from South Cyprus. It divides Asia from Europe and Muhammad from Jesus, just like Odysseus crossing the Aegean Sea to fight Trojans who would be Persians as soon as the opportunity presented itself. Those two Indo-European brothers long separated by time and space from the northern steppes. And this is my odyssey, crossing the green line where time stood still in 1974 and the prices stayed the same in stores and magazines, long shuttered but not silenced. But the prices are cheaper on the northern side now, so that's where I stay, with everything but the girl. Laptop begging me for succor while I prepare another boring supper, last one for the Passion of Christ, as I prepare my return to civilization. So I return to Istanbul as my foot breaks out with another bout of gout, begging for attention while I navigate the situation of my laptop, the factory service center on the other side of town, giving me a guided tour of the city's broader environs that I could never get from the breakfast buffet of the average guest house in the neighborhood of Sultanahmet. Yogurt may be the saving grace, but that can only go so far. So what's the verdict on a turkey with little genetic relation to its ancestral Turks back in Asia? Merely a culture and a religion and a language where not much else really counts? The Turkish coffee is better in Georgia, and the Turkish Kalins are better in Bosnia. This is arguably Asia, true, but not much, only sorta, kinda, almost, maybe. But if that's enough to keep Odysseus occupied for a decade, then I guess it's enough for me. This trip is over. See you in Africa. If you like this content, then feel free to like and subscribe. That goes a long way in keeping me happy and trying to make you happy. In the next episode, we'll return to Southern Europe and Southern Africa too. See you there. Thanks for watching. Goodbye now.